Hello, my name is Shure. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to my first ASMR film review. And as a special episode 1, I will be reviewing the First Omen and Immaculate for a very specific reason that I will get to later on in the video. So, the First Omen, I will begin with the First Omen and then move on to Immaculate. So, the First Omen, and before this video begins, there are going to be spoilers, so if you haven't seen the films, go and check them out and come back to this. So, spoiler warning and enjoy. So, the First Omen and Immaculate. Why have I chosen these films? Because for some reason these films are almost identical. I watched these films both on the same day. I went to the cinema and I saw the First Omen first, and then I saw Immaculate straight after. And my God, having both of those films fresh in my mind, I was blown away by the similarities. Just want to get it out the way. I think that the First Omen is definitely better than Immaculate. I think Immaculate has quite a few problems here and there, and it's a bit of a shame. But anyway, the First Omen, I gotta say, I think it was actually pretty decent. I was very surprised. I've only actually ever seen the original Omen film from, I think it was the 70s or 80s. I can't quite remember. But I saw that and it was brilliant. I loved the whole concept of the photos with the slashes and then the guy who gets his head cut off with a pane of glass. And Damien, I found it was just so freaky and brilliant. So going into the First Omen, I had no real hopes for it. I just wanted to see how it performs, and I gotta say, I actually thought it was quite good. The acting was great, the story was interesting, and speaking of story, this is where I wanted to talk about Immaculate as well. So both stories follow a woman that goes to Italy to become a nun. Sydney Sweeney's character in Immaculate, she goes through the thing to become a nun, and I can't remember what her character name was in the First Omen, but she goes there to become a nun as well. They are both kind of lost souls seeking enlightenment in God. But anyway, after being there for a short while, they both find out that they are pregnant. Now, in the First Omen, she finds out she has been impregnated by the devil. However, in Immaculate, she finds out she has been impregnated technically by a rusty nail. Now, I know that sounds bizarre, but the rusty nail actually contains the DNA of Jesus, and a mad priest was extracting that DNA and trying to implant the new Jesus, the new guy to take all the sins and all of that. So yeah, so they both become impregnated, and they both have these like funny, quirky side characters as well, which they share a couple of scenes with. And then as the story progresses, in both films, a nun commits suicide. One, just like the First Omen, she says the famous lines, "It's all for you," and then jumps off a building. And in Immaculate, she doesn't say anything, but she also jumps off a building. So similarities there. And then, as the story progresses, they both obviously become more and more pregnant, and then they both give birth. And what's shocking is, in the First Omen, briefly after she gives birth, the priest comes over and she picks up a scalpel and stabs him in the neck. But in Immaculate, just as Sydney Sweeney is about to give birth, she picks up the nail and also stabs the priest in the neck to kill them. Now, that's very similar deaths. They both died the exact same way. But after that, in the First Omen, she takes the baby and she runs away. But in Immaculate, now I don't even want to spoil the ending of that, but you'll have to see. But throughout both films, the similarities were just shocking. I couldn't believe it. They both go there to Rome to become nuns, and then they both become pregnant. People start killing themselves, freaky stuff happen, and I was just like, this is Immaculate. It's just the exact same film as the First Omen. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. But anyway, back to the First Omen. I thought that was much more accomplished, I think. I think the just general story, I think it was a bit more rounded, and the way it led on to the First Omen film, not the first one, but the actual first film, I think lined up nicely in the little Easter egg where she has the file with the picture of the guy in, was a nice touch. However, Immaculate, it felt a little forced, the film. It didn't quite feel organic, but Sydney Sweeney's performance is very good, obviously, so no fault on her part, but I just think the general story was a little weaker, and yeah, the ending was quite interesting, though. That was a shock, but it just all felt quite... Well, I think a lot of modern horror films suffer with this problem. A lot of it is quite jump scare related, so you have the typical build-ups, and all of these scares felt very predictable in a way. You knew exactly when something was going to happen. There would be a freaky setup, then the music would go quiet, then you'd hear a sound effect, and then bam, a jump scare. But I think the First Omen did it a little better, just building up that freakier world, and tension, I think, was just overall done better. I can't really fault the acting out of the two leads because they were pretty good. But yes, that's all I've really got to say. A couple of things that I wasn't too fussed on. Immaculate, I was just a little disappointed overall. Going off the trailers, I thought it was going to be a bit more interesting, but it's kind of gets quite repetitive after a while. She just wants to escape, but then she gets caught, then she tries to escape again, and then she gets caught. And then at the end, when she finally does escape, the film just suddenly ends. I was expecting a little more, but the First Omen, the film ends with a bit more of a grounded story conclusion, and it felt a bit more earned in a way. Not that I think that Immaculate felt slightly rushed. I think they tried to cram quite a lot into, I think it was only something like 89 minutes. But I've got no problem with short films, but I think some things could have been altered in the pacing. But anyway, my final scores. I will be giving the First Omen a 3.5 out of 5. And for Immaculate, I will be giving a solid 3 out of 5. I finally think as a final note that both films were fine. I mean, I enjoyed the First Omen a lot more than I thought I was going to, and Immaculate definitely had its moments of being quite terrifying. But yes, I think just the First Omen was a lot more grounded in its story, and Immaculate just felt a bit all over the place. Anyway, that's just what I think. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the films if you have seen them. And yes, I hope to make a lot more film reviews, so I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye for now.